Let's see if I can remember to go on a walk for more than one day, shall we? So because going on a walk is such a rare occurrence, let's do something special with every single walk. So the last walk, I told you guys a story time. Sort of. It was just a story of what happened that same morning. So, let's do that for every time I go on a walk, because I can't remember to go on a walk every single day, so every walk is special. So let's give you guys a Cordell Sherwood story time. So for this story, let's go back to one of the earliest memories that I remember, which isn't a lot. I don't remember a lot from before I was 10 years old, and when I was 10, I lived in this development, so yeah, so I had to go back to the earliest memories that I do remember, and that's not a lot. So let's tell you guys the story of when we first moved to Arizona. When we first moved to Arizona, I was about 5 years old, I want to say. I was about 5 years old when we moved to Arizona, and when we moved to Arizona, we didn't have a lot. In fact, yeah, we were pretty dirt poor. We were pretty dirt poor when we moved to Arizona. The car that we were in when driving down here constantly just needed to put water in the engine because the engine would keep overheating. And it sucked because the area we had to drive through to get from California to Arizona, we had to drive through this mountain area, and whew, the car could not handle it whatsoever. That car, from what my parents have told me, just could not handle it. We had to stop at every single rest stop that was on that trail to keep putting water in the engine so that the engine wouldn't overheat. So that the engine could stay running and we could continue driving. We had to stop at every single rest stop, and eventually we made it to Death Valley and our car exploded. Okay, so it didn't actually explode. But it did catch on fire, and that was the bad part. It caught on fire, we all had to rush out of the car, it caught on fire, we all had to rush out of the car, and then eventually we had to call a tow truck and have them come over, take our car, and then eventually my mom's parents, being my grandparents obviously, they had to come and pick us up. And yes, those are the same grandparents that came over not too long ago, that you guys unfortunately could not see on the vlog. So anyway, we made it to Arizona, so everything is better, right? Wrong. So we did not live in a house when we moved to Arizona. We didn't even live in an apartment. But instead, we lived in a homeless shelter. At the time, my mom and dad were kind of separated, so they didn't want to live together. My dad had his apartment that he lived at, and then my mom, my brother, I think my sister and I, was my sister born at that? Yeah, Desiree was born at that point. So, we all lived with my mom in a homeless shelter. So, that is where the earliest memories lie, is in that homeless shelter. So let's talk about the homeless shelter, shall we? Ow. It's kind of funny, actually, when you look at my memories of the homeless shelter and when you look at my brother's memories of the homeless shelter. My memories of the homeless shelters are more something about smell, objects, places that we went to. For example, one of the things that I made in the homeless shelter was this little wooden chest that we all got in arts and crafts, and we basically took those chests and we had to like put decorations on them, like little jewels or little fluff ball things or stuff like that. And that's one of the memories that I remember. But I also remember, like, we had those little gem things, and I was questioning it. I was like, why would you put the jewels on the treasure chest? Wouldn't it make more sense to put the jewels in the treasure chest? So I just filled up my treasure chest completely with all of these fake jewels, and they were like, no, you can't do that. And I can't remember why I couldn't do that, but oh well. I also remember the distinct smell of a yellow flower bush. There were yellow flower bushes, and there were also white variations of them, and those smells were very distinct. And I just remember the smell, and I smell it all the time in the Arizonian desert. All the time. And I always think back to the homeless shelter. And the last thing I remember is a St. Patrick's walk, I think. I think it was St. Patrick's Day anyway, where we walked through a, all these tree all these trees that were in the back of the homeless shelter. I don't think we actually went into them because I don't think it was a forest, but I remember thinking, oh my gosh, a forest of trees. But I don't think they were a forest of trees. I think it was just, like a couple of trees that just looked huge at the time because I was 5 years old. I was super small. So, yeah, those are the earliest memories I remember, and they were at a homeless shelter. But they weren't bad memories. I don't remember any bad memories of the homeless shelter. I only remember good memories. But where my memories are of places, objects, and smells, my brother's memories are more personal. They are more of social interactions. They're more of the people he's talked to. And when you take into consideration that I have Asperger's syndrome, that starts to make more sense. It starts to make more sense that my brother, who's a more sociable person, would remember more of interactions with other people, where I, who isn't social, who is not social, yeah, that makes sense. Whereas I, who is not social, would remember more of places and smells rather than people. I don't know, that's just my weird memory. So anyway, this concludes Cordell Sherwood story time. Convenient. If I can just follow this garbage truck, he'll take out my garbage, and then I can just put it back in the gate as soon as he passes by it. It's the perfect plan. So let's give you guys a quick update on the plant. Alright, so you can probably tell this thing has gotten a little bigger since the last time I showed you guys the plant. Alright, so this morning before I left for my walk, I actually watered the plant first. I watered the plant right before I left. Well, I didn't tell my mom that because she was asleep. So eventually, when I got home, my mom ended up watering the plant again. But not only did she water it again, she decided that she wanted to water, like, these leaves up here. She wanted to water the leaves, which made sense because the leaves were not coming in. Well, she accidentally put way too much water in it. So much so that the entirety of the soil is soaking wet. It almost floated, the dirt almost floated, and she had to dump out the excess water. So we watered it twice, and one of those times was over flooding the thing. So, yeah, if this thing still lives after that, I will be very surprised. I want to see how far this plant can go. I mean, I really like the color of this plant too. Like, if you look, it's starting to become green. And in case you guys don't know, green is my favorite color, and this is a really nice shade of green. I like it a lot. So I want to see how big this plant can get. This is really cool. The straw is here, by the way, to support the plant because the plant is getting to the point where it can't stand on its own. So we need to put the straw there in order to keep it balanced. So yeah, this thing's getting really big. Anyway, I think I'm going to call it quits here for today. So with all that said, I will see you guys tomorrow.